It's a pleasure for us to participate in this conference. We'll be presenting on a few techniques used within a very large project in Afghanistan titled Strategic Development Frameworks for 5 Provincial Capital Cities, completed between 2019 and 2020. We will show you an overview of the rapid landscape assessments and probabilistic urban expansion scenario modeling that served as the foundation for strategic planning in the cities we've engaged with. My name is Justin. I'm one of the lead urban planners on the project. I'm joined by my colleague Kai, who is a spatial analyst. We'll be presenting on behalf of our team at Sasaki. We'd like to start by saying that this involved a wide range of insights of a very large and diverse interdisciplinary team across Afghanistan and internationally. This was composed of engineers, economists, social development specialists, local planning consultants, and others. To give you a sense of the overall project scope we were working within, the goal was to evaluate the long-term development trajectories of 5 secondary Afghan cities: Herat, Mazar Sharif, Kandahar, Khost, and Jalalabad, which we'll show you a few examples of. We also identified urban design and development strategies to address critical urban management challenges common to and specific to each city. We also developed a strategic approach and methods for planning for uncertainty that can be translated to other cities in Afghanistan. There are some key challenges that we had to face when developing the approach, which makes this very different from the projects we've done in the US. For example, rapid informal urbanization is a key challenge, as internally displaced persons move to the city from the countryside due to conflict. This has placed incredible strain on public services, and it has also been difficult to control where people settle, leading to many informal areas at the periphery. You can see the historic urban expansion taking off, especially recently, from the map on the right, which shows urban expansion from 2014 to 2018 highlighted in orange. A lack of data and few resources to really do comprehensive planning work meant that we also just had to use what we could. There is also little urban management capacity at the local level of government and conflict in decision-making circles across government, which can constrain projects like these. We had to focus on supporting and informing decision-making with the recognition that governing situation could change quickly. Goals for analysis. The first goal was to analyze land suitability for directing urban developments in a sustainable manner based on the unique features of the Afghan context, in particular to each city. The second was to create models for evaluating urban expansion, like scenarios, based on existing and selected planning management strategies, such as a do-nothing approach, where informal urban expansion continues, and alternative approaches that may be able to redirect this growth more sustainably. Thirdly, given the technical proficiency varies at the local government level, we needed to be able to convey complex analyses and the consequences of current urban development trajectories to a range of engineers, planning staff, and officials through visual representation, diagrams, maps, renderings, etc.
To address the first goal of analyzing land suitability, we conducted a rapid landscape assessment where we created 2 models in ArcMap's ModelBuilder. Due to the lack of data, our analyses and models were all very dependent on either satellite imagery or open data from international agencies such as the UN and World Bank, who have done extensive work in Afghanistan. The first model, which you see here, helped to identify areas that provide critical ecosystem services. Looking at the high ecological sensitivity area in dark green that's highlighted, this might be an area where future development plans might want to avoid in order to preserve key ecological systems. The second model focused on areas prone to natural hazards. In the highlighted dark red area of high environmental risk, these are areas where future development might want to avoid or implement strategies to mitigate risk from natural hazards. Given that these cities have no capacity to control urban expansion by land use, the third model we created was more of an estimate to provide a general direction of future growth. The model itself is based on assumptions of where people would likely settle given rapid population growth based on landscape conditions, proximity to jobs, etc. Each 5-year increment that you see on the map represents a probabilistic rating of pressure from settlements. For example, in Jalalabad, in the next 20 years, pressure from settlements tend heavily towards the south, as well as in north into the hillsides. We took the outputs from these 3 models to create an overlay that illustrates spatial framework guidelines. These guidelines were used as a decision-making support tool by providing a general framework for policy and investment strategies. These link to the overall strategic goals, but give clear guidelines based on the previous sets of analyses for where to guide development and protect ecological assets.
The spatial framework guidelines could then inform and situate a range of strategies in key areas. Here's an example to the north of Jalalabad near Nangarhar University, where multiple landscape interventions and infrastructural strategies are located to improve connectivity and address specific planning goals. Also, given the medium to long-term uncertainty surrounding planning in each city, a toolkit approach was tied to the rapid landscape assessment that allows municipal administrators to choose strategies that address critical challenges. Here's an example of one of the landscape graphics that breaks down a typical Afghan urban valley section of sorts to identify specific areas of planning strategies for addressing the environmental and urban interface.
As we developed strategies during the project timeline, we circled back to our urban expansion model and integrated proposed design solutions, such as densification along corridors to create a recommended growth scenario. Here, we see the proposed direction of growth for the next 20 years in Jalalabad. In general, densification might help to delay urban sprawl into agricultural land, as you see in D2, and reduce encroachment onto hillsides in the north, as shown in B2.
Here's another example of one of the key areas highlighted for intervention in the northeast, where settlements have begun to encroach on the hillsides and where current expansion has made trouble for drainage, resulting in flooding during heavy rains. You can see, again, several strategies called out as a selection list for municipal administrators to choose from, such as check dams, drainage corridor designs, road upgrades, recreational amenities, and others that tie back to the overall spatial framework. Additionally, there are many other themes under which intervention strategies fell, which are far too expansive for this presentation. These range from transportation, urban development, basic services, cultural assets, landscape and ecology, among others. Finally, it should be mentioned that this approach and the models created here are intended only to be first steps. They will be improved upon as planning capacities are built and as additional data and more resources become available. This will also be applied to another 7 to 9 cities in the near future, with the goal of extending to all municipalities as a replacement for cumbersome and resource-intensive master plans. Finally, it is also our hope that this will only be a starting point for the careful balance between analysis, as shown in the scenarios and models, and the open-endedness of the scenarios that is needed for local administrators to do what they think needs to be done.
Thank you for allowing us to share a small part of our project, and if you're interested in learning more about our work, please feel free to reach out. We'd love to hear from you.